Hello everyone, welcome back to the Oso Valley. This is not a video specifically about the Oso Valley, but as I mentioned in update 17, this is just a real quick comparison video between using Woodland Scenics risers and Inclines, the foam ones, versus something like I did here using wood. This is my first time doing this, so it was kind of interesting to see the differences between construction methods and how long it takes and the amount of work involved and all the rest of it. When I decided I wanted a double deck layout, I knew that the top section was going to be kind of mountainous countryside, and so I knew I'd have a fair amount of elevation changes. I guess I was prompted to try the foam risers because they just seem a lot easier to work with, and my other problem down here in Southern Europe is it's not always easy to get the right kind of wood. So I sort of put two and two together and tossed a coin and came up with the foam risers. Unfortunately, I didn't quite have enough, and so that's one of the reasons I ended up building that section in wood and along the back there as well. And of course, I had to build the helix out of wood because I don't know of a foam solution for that one. But if anybody's got any great ideas, I'm all ears. Anyway, so pros and cons. These are super lightweight. They're very flexible. Okay, they're easy to glue down, or you can use either a hot glue gun or you can use white wood glue. And this is just the cheapest of the cheap white wood glue. And it dries, gluing it onto plywood or foam, the whole thing dries in about an hour, something like that. And all you do is you just pin it down with these Woodland Scenics T-pins. And if you're going to use the foam risers and Inclines, I highly recommend you buy 1 or 2 packs of these. They're pretty cheap, but it just makes your life a lot easier. And you can see all the pin marks where I've been pinning areas in, waiting for the glue to dry. Yeah. It's just really easy stuff to work with, and it's lightweight. The downside is, I think they're kind of pricey, personally. For example, and I'll come back to my box here. As you can see with this piece, I've got a 1/2 inch riser with a 2-degree incline glued on the top. You can see it gradually tapers off down there. It's quite useful when you're doing curved sections. It's quite useful to figure out which pieces you're going to use and then glue them together first, and then once they've dried after, I don't know, a couple hours, 3 hours, then pin everything into place, or lay the glue and pin everything into place. If you can use a hot glue gun, you can just run a single bead along there, and it's very easy to work in and bend it and put it into any configuration you want. And the beauty of using a thin bead of hot glue is you can pull it, if you make a mistake, you can pull it off really easy. I didn't, I wanted mine belt and braces, so I went and glued with white wood glue, and I just ran a bead along the whole back and forth section and then glued it down, and it's worked well. And the reason I did it that way is because the atmosphere here, it transitions from hot to cold, very damp, very dry. And so I didn't want my scenery coming apart in a couple of years' time. So that was my rationale for that. The other nice thing about foam is it's really easy to cut. You can just use a real basic hacksaw, you can use a hobby knife, you can use whatever. It's pretty messy. I don't have any photographs of when I was working with the foam, but I was absolutely covered head to toe in white baubles. It was like it was snowing in the garage. It was phenomenal. Fortunately, I had a shop vac to clean it all up. So the other thing about foam is you can use this Woodland Scenics hot foam cutter, and they give you you get a little bit of wire, and you get a couple of posts to change the width of it, or the cutting width, and you can actually adjust this and do all kinds of stuff with it. You can bend the wire into a U shape and cut along, and it works very, very well. Coming back to cost again, my complaint about it would be it's ridiculously expensive. I mean, this little plastic device, power supply, an extra post and a bit of wire cost me about £42. I don't know what that is in dollars or euros, but off the top of my head, but it's not cheap. I mean, I don't mind paying money for tools that I know I'm going to use and get enjoyment out of, but yeah, I think 42 quid for that is just having a bit of a laugh. But anyway, I still bought it. So I suppose I shouldn't be complaining too loudly. I don't know what that stuff costs in the United States. I mean, obviously I had to buy mine with a Euro plug or a UK plug in some cases. But yeah, so worth bearing that cost in mind when you're thinking about using foam. The other thing about foam is the shipping costs. Because I knew I was going to have a fair amount of foam, and my shipping costs are going to be more or less the same whether I buy 2 or 3 of these or a whole case. I ended up buying a whole case, and you can see there I just bought a whole big box of Woodland Scenics foam, and I've got some left. I'll be able to use it on other projects, and I also got some foam roadbed at the same time, because at the time I thought I was going to have more flex track than I ended up using, but that's fine. It won't go to waste. It's not going to go off. It'll keep, and I'll use it on something else one day. So I suppose all in all, in terms of the foam, not including the hot wire cutter, but the actual cost of the foam, the shipping, and I had to buy another couple of spare incline sets to finish off the upper deck a few weeks ago. I suppose I've probably spent total about £150, and that's done the whole layout. The only thing I would add is this foam here I used on the lower deck as a base for this small section at the back. I ended up purchasing that from a DIY shop in Gibraltar, and that is pretty much the actual size of it. I don't know what that is exactly, but it's just over 1 meter. I think 1 meter by 1 meter, I believe. No, that's not correct. Maybe 1 meter is about 2 meters. Let me have a think. No, sorry, here you go. It's from there along, so that's probably not even that. It's 600 centimeters, or yeah, say 60 centimeters by 50 centimeters, maybe. I think that sounds about right. Those cost about £13 each, and I bought 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 altogether, because I've cut a couple up there and I've used it in different places. And again, I've got spare pieces here. The beauty of this is, although it's 50 centimeters deep, not including the blue piece I've glued on, it actually works out at 2 inches, which is very, very useful, because all of these inclines are, they come in 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch, 4 inch sizes, and then the inclines you can get are 2%, 3%, and 4%. I've used 2% everywhere, apart from just inside there because I was running out of space, and I think I've showed you before, just going around the corner behind that foam section, that's also 4%. And 4% is very, very steep for a train, but I have to be honest, I've not had any troubles with mine whatsoever. That said, I tend to use multiple units, 2, 3 or more locomotives. Although this little train here, I've tried it with that, and I've had no problems at all. I haven't actually found the limit yet. And this is an old second-hand Atlas locomotive, so I think 4% is okay. So that kind of covers the foam area. Yeah. Turning to the wood, I had to use wood here because I ran out of foam and I didn't want to buy any more. And I had lots of bits and pieces of plywood left over from the original top deck build and some of the lower deck as well. So I just utilised it, like everything else in this hobby, you just kind of utilise what you've got. I really enjoyed doing it. It was a bit of hassle. I mean, just kind of this top section here and this little lower piece and lower pieces under there. And this piece, I suppose, time-wise, I spent easily a couple of days doing it, maybe 2.5 days. I mean, I made some mistakes and had to change things, and in fact, I've still got to change that riser back there. The nice thing about using plywood, if you have to, is you don't have to worry about covering up the road base. It's nice and solid. You can, well, this one I haven't, but you can screw it down like I've screwed down different parts under there. It gives you space to run your wires if you need to. So it is a nice space to work from once it's in place, but it is a lot more work. And of course it adds a heck of a lot of weight to the layout. I think I've said before, this section I didn't mind using plywood because this module was fairly lightweight to begin with. Whereas over here with the helix, that was quite heavy. I didn't really want to add any more plywood, so I utilized the foam. And here, this is not flimsy, but I didn't want to weigh it down too much. So I used a combination of foam and plywood. The nice thing about using plywood, especially in a box section, it adds strength. So that is worth considering, you know. But you can see it ties in quite nicely with the foam. One thing I forgot to mention is one of the tools I use with great regularity, and I need to do it here, is you can see there's a bit of a gap on the track and the roadbed, and that's because I got this section wrong. I used the wrong pieces for it, but I can fix that easily. Just flip it over basically. But the nice thing about foam is you can sand it really easy and shape it really easy, and one of the things I use to do that is I use this permagrit sanding block. This side's very coarse, and of course this side's very fine. It's very lightweight because it's hollow. Because it's shaped, it's very strong and keeps its smoothness or its flatness. So it's quite easy to, you know, put the block on its side and maybe sand a piece of foam if you want to keep it square. You know, you can make a jig and sand pretty much anything you want. This permagrit is worth considering because I've had that. It's got to be 25 years, and it's completely original. The grit is original, and I think when it was originally released, permagrit, it was something like, it was either a 15-year or a lifetime guarantee on it, or something ridiculous like the old Sears Craftsman tools used to be. If any of you in America have Sears Craftsman tools, you know what I'm talking about. I've even got some of my dad's old tools, and they're like, some of those are 40 plus years old, and they're as good as the day they were shipped from the factory. But anyway, just consider that, you know, you're going to use a sanding block, and it's going to be very messy if you're using foam. All right. Anyway, guys, that's about it from me. Any questions or anything you want to ask me, feel free. Like I say, this is the first time building a layout for me, as I've said many times. So everything I do is a learning experience, and I just wanted to pass on my experience using foam versus plywood, or combining the two. And I hope that helps you build your layout. All right, guys. Thanks very much for watching, and I just want to finish up by saying thanks a million to the people that subscribe to this channel. When I started this, it was just an outlet for me to share and connect with other model railroaders, because I don't have anybody like that in my area. And it's been quite amazing. I think I've got something like, as of making this video, I've got 39 subscribers, which I never ever expected. I know it's a drop in the bucket compared to a lot of channels, but yeah, it's just appreciated. So thanks very much for your subscriptions. All right, guys, speak to you soon.